So in the last lesson, we had looked at arrays, and another one of those really powerful pieces of JavaScript is the ability to do conditions and comparisons. So I can actually take a series of values and I can do a comparison between them. So let me just remove out some of these console logs here. And I'm going to comment out these array updates here because I don't actually want to use them within this lesson. And when we're doing conditions or comparisons of values, this is again where we start applying that really powerful logic into what we're doing and how we're creating our JavaScript. So if I want to take a look at, and we're going to use these myArray values, so if I wanted to see if 7 is greater or if 9 is greater than 7, I could do something like this where I could do if, or maybe we'll just keep it really simple and we'll say if my array so 1 or 0, 1, 2, so if my array 2 is greater than, let's say, 5, and I'm going to set a brand new variable output out, or maybe I should just put out HTML, and I'm going to set it at just keep it blank there, and then over here is when we run our condition, our comparison there, I'm going to check to see if those values are greater. So if 7 is greater than 5, we're going to output of true. And a refresh. And actually I should put output HTML there to really finish this off. So we see that 7 in fact is greater than 5, and that's why we're getting a value of true. But what if we had a value of 15? So what happens now? We don't actually have anything happening because we haven't met any of these conditions. And this is where we can use else. So else is going to do something if this condition isn't true. So to keep it fairly logical and straightforward, I'm going to output false. So we can do a quick check. I just did a beautify there to make the code more readable. So again, we're going to read through this and we're going to see that 7 and check to see if 7 is greater than 15, and which we know that 7 isn't greater than 15, so our output should be false. Do a refresh and we do get false. Now we can add in any number of criteria here to make these conditions, and this is basically what happens is this block of code is what gets executed if it's true, and this is the block of code that gets executed if it's false. So within here we can do any number of logical conditions and so on in order to really apply some really cool logic. So we also have less than 15, so now we know that 7 is going to be less than 15, so now we should see true. If we do something, we could even keep it really simple. We could get rid of those variables and we could say if 8 is less than 15, which is true. If 18 is less than 15, false, and so on. And when we're looking at this, we also have the ability to apply additional else statements. So I can actually even do else if and do another check to see if 18 is greater than 5. And then so if this is true, this logic is going to get applied. Output HTML equals second check. So now if so first of all it's going to come in here and say, okay, if 18 is less than 5, 15, if it comes out true, then we're going to output this. It's got a second condition here. If 18 is greater than 5, it's going to do that second check there. So that's going to output second check, and if none of these are true, it's going to do that final output of false. So now we see that second check is true. You can also do combinations here, so I can get rid of I can do multiple checks here, so to keep it from getting too confusing. So I could do something like 18 is less than 15 and 18 is greater than 15. So which doesn't really make a lot of sense, because once we do this check, but when we work with dynamic values, this will make more sense. So when we do it like this, both of them have to come out to be true. So when we refresh it, we see that it's false because both of these together are not true. We can do or. So if either one is true, then we get this output of true. And so it doesn't necessarily need to meet both conditions. So these are just different ways to apply this logic and work out what should be output when we're doing the check. And again, when we're doing more dynamic values here, this is going to make a lot more sense than simply when we can just have a readable format and we know which one is going to be true. So if these numbers were increasing, if they were a value of A or something like that, and A contained 18, and then over here we had some kind of new calculation for A. So again, this isn't going to make much sense, so maybe I can do if A is less than 5 and A is greater than 15. So this will give us a value. So if A actually is a value anywhere between these, and I'm going to change that to and. So if A is a value of 8, we should see, just got to reverse those. So we're looking to see if A is between 5 and 15, then it's going to be true. And if it's anything greater or less than that, it's going to be false. And so now if we had a calculation of A equals A plus, so that's a short form for doing an increment on A. So now I'm just going to reset A over to 15 or to 14. So now it should come out as false because the value of A is actually going to be 15. So there's a number of different ways to work with these conditions and make these calculations. So in the next lesson, we're going to show you how to do loops. And loops are going to be really cool because this is why I introduced this incrementing here. Because with loops, we can do a whole bunch of increments and a whole bunch of updates. So it saves us the trouble of writing out a bunch of stuff over and over again. So if I want to increment by 1, I just do like a whole bunch of these increments by 1. So there's a better way to do this, and that's what loops are all about. So that's coming up in the next lesson.